Corruption Watch. Of course, just as the year was ending, they exposed they exposed the danger that we are all facing across Ghana because of the investigative report that showed that there are corrupt deals going on at DVLA, where officials extort money from unqualified drivers, license applicants, and help them cheat the system to acquire licenses without being examined. Okay, so today we're back with some very significant updates on this story. So Corruption Watch is sponsored by Danida in collaboration with Ghana Integrity Initiative, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, Africa Center for International Law and Accountability, and of course multimedia platforms Joy FM and Adom FM. This is how you can reach us on social media. On Facebook, it's Corruption Watch Ghana. On Twitter, it's Corruption Watch or at CW Ghana. On Instagram, it's Corruption Watch _GH. On YouTube, we are Corruption Watch Ghana. And of course, the website is corruptionwatchghana.org. You can call us on 055 22 000 33. That's also our WhatsApp number. And as you're tweeting at us this morning, use the hashtag WanaMoney and hashtag GhanaAbre in addition to the hashtag JoySMS. Of course, Corruption Watch has 6 different segments. On today's episode, 2 segments are coming up. We're doing the We Remember segment, where we bring you updates on Corruption Watch's investigation into the unlawful acquisition of driver licenses. And of course, we have an expert panel to help us shed more light on the documentary, as well as the corrective actions that have so far been taken following the expose. Then we'll do From the Streets, which is a segment where we bring you reactions from you, our listeners. Okay, you get a chance to call in and send in messages as well, sharing your thoughts about what has happened so far. All right, so I'm sure you remember Corruption Watch's investigation by Francisca Enchel, which set out to determine the process for the acquisition of a driver's license at the DVLA, and found that some DVLA officials charged between 1,200 and 1,800 Ghana cedis to aid applicants in acquiring licenses without being examined as required by law. The investigation was carried out in 2 regions, the Greater Accra Regional Office, which is at 37, and the Tamale Regional Office in the Northern Region. Here is a quick recap.
Your license, near the 1 week, but the 1,003. Then 1 month, the 1,001. Yes. Yeah, you've been a number 1 on 800. And you know, you're the sort of office like home pass it through that stress match. It is 1 touch. But that's it.
And to say exams, no, it's 1,003 now. Exams, no mean true.
No exam, nothing. You know, we just need your biometrics and your information in the data, that's all. Then we just give you, and you get the card itself. You get the driver's license card.
The instructor set a date to meet the investigator to start the process. And this meeting happened at the STC driving school, where he explicitly made his offer. The instructor then took the investigator to the 37 office, where he received payment for the illicit deal and took the investigator through the capturing process. 1 week later, the investigator received the license as promised.
Welcome back. So you heard excerpts from that groundbreaking documentary, which we aired just before we went on break. All right, so let's have a conversation about it. We're joined over the phone by investigative journalist Francisca Enchil, who did the investigation for Corruption Watch. In the studio, Reverend Paul Boakye Adom is the director of Bethel Training and Consultancy Services. They are the ones who operate the STC driver training school in partnership with STC Driver Training and Services. We're joined via Zoom by the owner of Joe Rees Drive Tech, Mr. Joseph Boakye Adom, and the head of regulation, inspection, and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority, Kwame Kodua Etuahene, also joins us via phone. So, lady and gentlemen, good morning to you all, and thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
Good. So I can hear you all quite clearly. Francisca, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you because, I mean, it is your work that has brought all of this to our attention. I mean, what is it that tipped you off? I understand how the journalistic process works. Something made you believe that there's a story to be uncovered at DVLA. What was it?
Okay, so as Corruption Watch, one of our investigative strategy is to undertake investigations with a goal of institutional reforms, which we've been doing over the years. And with this strategy, we sometimes review the work being done by some particular state institutions, whether there's been concerns raised, and then whether there's been any reforms over a period, and then go in to check how work is being done there, if there is any issue to find there. And for DVLA in particular, corruption at DVLA has been a subject of discussion on several platforms. It has been a casual subject of discussion among people. And so there was a reason to look into what was happening there, particularly with the fact that DVLA itself had announced that they've also seen corruption in the system, for which reason they even introduced a computerized system examination so that it takes care of the rot in the examination that they have found. So it's something they themselves have admitted, that they've seen corruption in the system. And so that was one of the reasons why we said, okay, let's go in, let's test the system and see how work is being done over there, particularly with the alarming number of deaths and then injuries resulting from road accidents, which the people moving the vehicle is a contributing factor. And so that informed our decision to go into this investigation.
So over what period did you do the investigation, and what were the kernels of your findings?
Can you please take the question again?
Over what period did you do the investigation, and what were your main findings?
Okay, it's a 3-year-long investigation that we did at DVLA, and we did it in both Accra and then Northern Region, the Tamale office, and then the 37 office. So it took a whole 3 years to do this investigation. And some of our findings during this period was rot in a situation where staff take money from applicants and then promise to offer them some services. They enjoy some benefits where they avoid going through what is required by law to be certified to have a driver's license in Ghana. So some of our findings were the fact that anyone who is able to pay from 1,200 cedis to 1,800 cedis to give DVLA officials will benefit from avoiding writing the mandatory computerized examination. They avoid going for the 48-hour, which is 10 working day training in a driving school. So the computerized examination, applicants actually go in there, sit by the computer because there are cameras in the examination hall. So they let applicants come in, sit by the computer to be captured as coming in for the examination, while DVLA staff who are supposed to supervise you to write the exam come there as if they are setting up your computer for you, and within less than 2 minutes they finish answering all 30 questions, 20 questions for you, which is supposed to last for 30 minutes. The exam questions is supposed to be answered in 30 minutes. But then in less than 2 minutes, DVLA staff is able to answer those questions for you when it comes to the computerized examination. We also found that the in-traffic driving test, where after you write a computerized examination and you pass, you are taken to the road to move a vehicle for the staff at DVLA to be able to watch your knowledge with handling a vehicle. That particular one, once you pay this money, you do not go to the in-traffic driving test. You do not take it at all. But then you get cleared that you have taken that test. You don't do road sign test either, but then you get cleared to have done it. And then we also found that DVLA staff are actually willing to take money from you for you to pass the eye test even when you have an eye problem. So those were some of our findings when we did this investigation.
So, I mean, just quickly before we bring in the other guests, Francisca, before you did this work, you were aware of the general view that this sort of thing is possible at DVLA. I mean, we know there are Guru boys there. When you go, you'll see them. So people generally believe that these things were possible. Did any of your findings surprise you?
Some of them, for instance, the examination hall, I had the knowledge because we did a few fact-finding before even setting out in the first place. So we knew what to expect. But then what was surprising to me was for the examination, for instance, how swiftly the guy was able to answer the questions and with no fear, with no concern to try to maybe, because I was expecting from the information I had gathered before setting out, I was expecting that maybe the guys will teach you all right, maybe some 10 questions for you to help you make sure you pass. But then it was surprising they were not concerned that you could not answer any of the questions at all. They don't care whether you can answer them or not, which was relevant to know whether you should, it is safe for you to actually handle a car or not. Right. And so they don't give you the chance to even try to answer some number of questions. They just answer it all. So like the complete disregard for your knowledge, to know your knowledge about handling a vehicle and using the road was quite surprising to me as an investigator.
So they finished answering in about 2 minutes, and then they ask you to sit
I timed
there?
it, and it was 1 minute 45 seconds.
Wow.
And he had finished answering all 20 questions, which were supposed to be answered in 30 minutes.
And then they make you sit at the computer for 30 minutes doing nothing?
Pardon?
After that, did he make you sit at the computer for 30 minutes doing nothing?
No. The moment it ended and the score came, you scored 85%.
Right.
That's it. He just makes you rise from your seat. You are not going to sit down to pretend to be sitting down for the 30 minutes. No.
That is interesting.
You are done.
That is interesting because there are cameras in the room, right?
Exactly. And so the DVLA, during our interview with them, for instance, they pointed out that they had some audit system that the audit system is supposed to be checking every examiner and how he was doing his work and all that. So I'm surprised that if there's indeed an audit system of that nature, the audit system has not been able to detect that there was a particular exam, somebody has gone in instead of 30 minutes, the person spent less than 10 minutes in the exam hall. And for them to have a reason to review, because there's been several of such. And so if there's an audit system, why hasn't that been detected? Like the number of minutes being used instead of the 30 minutes.
Yeah. That's actually the point I wanted to highlight. Thank you very much for that. Now let's come into the studio where we have Reverend Paul Boakye Iadom. He's the director of Bethel Training and Consultancy Services. They are the partners of STC Driver Training and Services. They run the driving school at STC. Reverend, once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, when you saw the video of a member of your staff, your team member, taking money to allow someone completely skip the whole driving school process and still get a driving license at the end of the process, how did that make you feel?
Thank you, and good morning to your listeners and your viewers. In fact, the first time I saw the video, I was indeed taken aback. It's really surprised me. I was shocked to the bones because it's not part of our ethics and the moral philosophy of running the place. Because we have a mindset of bringing up the best drivers so that at least we can minimize the carnage and the loss of lives through accidents on our roads. So we have inculcated into our instructors and all the staff there that, yes, we are getting money, but the core of the business is to make sure that we support road safety campaign that is going on so that we can minimize the carnage and also to protect lives. Because if we train drivers and we don't train them well, the possibility of the drivers killing us one day is also there. So all our staff and everybody that gets involved with the training has this mindset. So in fact, I was shocked. And in addition to this, we have brought in a sophisticated machine that is called simulator. It's a three-dimensional machine that takes all the people that pass through our system through. It gives different dimensions. You can have a hazard, you can have rain, it takes you through all the different angles of driving school. And we make sure all the people that pass through our system go through this.
Right.
To make sure that we have the right. So in fact, I was shocked.
What I'm wondering is, your colleague, the individual who was shown in the documentary, he's able to generate these. Is it index numbers? What is the number that you are given at the end of the driving process?
There's an invoice.
Yeah.
We have a system,
right,
that will put you on, and then DVLA will assess it. Then there's a payment that we have to pay. So with that invoice and that list, we give money for the instructor to go and pay and then take the student through the practicals.
So that the thing that confirms that a student has done the practicals, what is it? Is it a number or
there's a code?
Very good. So your colleagues can generate this code for your customers, right?
Yeah.
And you are aware that your colleague can do that whether or not the customer has done the driving test. There's no way for you to check whether the code was given because the person has actually completed a driving test.
No,
you can never tell.
You can't tell.
So that means you are aware of that gap in your system.
No, I have an aspect in the control system that I do. When somebody comes to register to learn, before you go for the in-traffic and the tests, first of all, we have to book you into the system for DVLA to acknowledge. And I do that one personally.
Right.
To make sure that the system works perfectly. All that he does is to key in the attendance and that kind of thing, and then the code for him to take the person to the driving school.
So that's my point. Because his part is to key in attendance and then give the code at the end.
Yeah.
So the way the system works, he can do all that for someone who has not actually attended, who has not actually done lessons, but he can still key in attendance for that person and generate a code, and you would not know.
No, the code is generated by DVLA.
Right, but it's based on the keying in of attendance.
So there's an interface. There's an interface that he keys in, and then DVLA will also know that this person has gone through the process and is due for test, and that's.
So what I'm saying is he can key in attendance for someone who has not attended. That's what he did for this person.
That aspect of a DVLA system, I'm not aware, and I don't know. I'm not sure that this loophole is supposed to be there, because there should be a control to limit him, because we have the list of all the people that have attended our school, and based on the list that he has to key in. So there should be no way that the people who have not gone through our system should be able to have code for them to be given a license.
So you're telling us you don't actually know how
I don't
he
know
did
how.
what he did in the
Yeah,
documentary.
I don't know
So you
how.
can't fix the problem.
The problem, we have to maybe see DVLA again and see what we can do about that aspect of how that thing was possible.
So
For me,
whatever he did, he can still do it. He can still be putting people at risk because you haven't figured out how he did it.
yeah, in fact, honestly, I don't know how he did it. And I doubt.
So, if I understand, you are saying that you don't have a system that ensures that persons who do not attend these classes do not get into the list. Do you have that system?
We have a system. And our system is when you come, we register you. You go through the normal process, the
And
theory.
from that, you have a system that checks the attendance.
We have a system that we check the attendance and generate a list of students who
How
qualify.
do you ensure that persons who do not attend don't get into the list?
What we do is, at the end of the day, when it comes to the practicals, we have a list that we give to the instructor.
Who gives the list to the instructor?
We have a receptionist, a secretary who compile the list that these people have gone through our training, they are due for in traffic, they are in for tests, and then we generate the list with the amount that we have to pay to DVLA. And that is what is given.
So the receptionist, she doesn't do the training. She doesn't do the actual driving training. So how does she know that the people on the list that she's keying in have actually attended driving school and done the training?
Yes, because when she is the one, when they come, they see. She's the first call-up that they meet. When you come, she will interview you, tell you that we have a program for learners within this period. Are you ready? And this is how much it costs.
Now, in
So
the documentary, we saw your receptionist telling the investigator to go and see the driving instructor. Tell him that she wants what, an express service or something like that.
yeah, that was a flaw. It's not part of our system. She's not supposed to tell the instructor. All that she has to do is to give the person what he has to do. If it's coming for learner, beginner, there's a fee for that one. And then give the person the timetable when they should start and all that. And if the person is ready, she pays the money and the receipt is generated for the person.
So what she did is not your procedure.
Yes, it was done at the blind side of management. It's
How
not-
was she able to do that on your blind side? Why do you have that blind side? Are you
Yeah,
not checking what your people do?
we had a designated officer who went on maternity leave, and the handing over was done to her. So we know the normal system that is done. So until corruption work brought this to our attention, we didn't have no. Even though we suspected there was something fishy, because I noticed that our revenue was going down, and then me myself, I was checking using the receipt that was coming in the list, but I was not able to figure out. So on this even note, we have to commend the corruption work for bringing this up and then letting us be aware, be on our toes. It's in fact a real lesson to us.
So what have you done to ensure that whoever is your receptionist now cannot do what the other lady did?
So we have initially interdicted the two victims, and we
You
have
mean the culprits?
the
not victims.
culprits. Yeah, the culprits. We have initially interdicted them, and now we have sacked them. And it's supposed to serve as a deterrent, and also to let them learn, and also to make management let them know that anybody who fall foul of the law or act contrary to what we are doing, the person will be sacked and then probably prosecute the person. So we
have you introduced any systems that will prevent someone from doing the same thing?
Yes. So the new system that we have introduced is that initially, what we were doing, we just give the lists to the instructor, plus the amount that need to be paid to DVLA, So he goes to DVLA and he pays the money. So at that point, anything at all can happen. Now, what we have done is that the instructors will have no contact with any money. We have done this separation of job. So a different person will go with the list to DVLA and make payment, get the receipt. When the receipt comes, we'll cross-check with the list of students that we have actually trained to be sure that indeed the amount that we have paid agrees with the list that we have generated. So now that is the system we have put in place.
And is this different from the system that was there before?
Yes, it was different in a sense that previously it was the instructor that was receiving the money and then the list to go and do the payment at DVLA. And as we all know, any control system, no matter how effective or strong, if they are connivance, the system will not work. So
let me ask you, hypothetically, and I want to bring in the others, but I just want to finish this point with you. Hypothetically, if I walk into your driving school, I speak to your receptionist, she takes me through the proper process, and I make the payment to the right person. Then she says, okay, your instructor is Winston. Then I go over to Winston. Winston is still the one who will key in my attendance. Am I right?
No.
Winston will no longer be keying in my
attendance.
Who will be keying in my attendance?
We have another person that will be keying the attendance this time.
And where will that person get the information from? Because Winston is the one training me.
You will get the information from the registry, because now every student that will come have to book an attendance book. We are going to put in place an attendance book. So when you come, you fill in the time that you came and everything. So from that book, we'll use it to input the system.
And who is in charge of that book?
The lady, the gentleman monitoring the simulator, the gentleman in charge of training on the simulators.
Okay. Because so there is still one person who determines whether I have attended or not, because they are in charge of the book.
Yeah.
So if that person says, give me 1,200 and I'll take that you have attended, so how will you know?
So again, it comes to the same point. Integrity comes in here.
Right. Okay. I want to bring in Joseph Boakye-Yadom, who is the owner of Joe Rees Drive Tech. That's another driving school. Joseph, thank you for joining us. We want to understand what the common problems are. You've been listening to your colleague, Reverend Paul Boakye-Yadom, explaining what happens at his driving school. Do you have a similar setup? Do you face similar problems?
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning again to Rev as well. We share the same surname, and I'm really grateful to meet him. My problem is the fact that, you see, he's trying hard to explain the processes that people go through when they attend driving school. It's instructive for you to know that I have suspended my driving school just because of these lapses at the DVLA. Most of these driving schools, my brother, are helpless because of the corruption at the DVLA. And you see, the main focus of people attending driving schools at the moment is not for them to learn how to be able to safely drive, but to get driver's license. He will attest to the fact that even some people come to driving schools with driver's license just to learn how to move the vehicle. This problem, I saw this problem around 2004, 2005. When I started my driving school. And when the DVLA came for inspection at my driving school in Kumasi, which was Joe Rees Drive Tech, they used it as a model driving school for people, for most driving schools to come and see our setup and set up their driving schools like that. But we found out that people, when you're operating a driving school at the moment, it's like you are compelled to get a driver's license for the students, which shouldn't be so. You come to the driving school, you learn what you are supposed to learn, you are tested by the authorized body, and if they think you deserve it, then the license is issued to you. But that is not the case. There were instances when I was running a driving school, I had to go for a remark for 2 people. Meanwhile, those people had passed their driving test, the theory driving test, but they had been failed. because I personally took charge of their training, I insisted that we go for a rematch, and they passed. So the problem with the situation now is the fact that driver's license is for sale. But if we are looking at road safety and the number of people who die on our roads and the knowledge needed by the driver to be able to safely handle a vehicle, then the DVLA is the problem. You see, now the driving schools, even the driver instructors in the driving schools, about 90% are not even qualified to be driver instructors. Most of them don't even know the basics of driving, but then they are driver instructors. And you see, I have a serious problem with this whole concept of driving schools, because I entered the driving school industry with the mentality of ensuring road safety. So my duty is to properly train an applicant. When you go and you fail, the responsible institution should tell me why you failed, then you will confirm whether you failed or not. But then here is a situation whereby people come to the driving school and then their main aim is for the driver's license and not to learn how to drive. So some of these instructors are just guru boys. I'm telling you the fact. About 90% of the driver schools instructors are just guru boys.
So is that why you ended up shutting down your school?
Yes, I had to, because I couldn't be part of this system. I couldn't be part of this system because I can't train someone to go for a test and the person is failed when the person had passed, or the person is made to pay money to be able to pass. So it makes the driving schools a bit helpless, because the more people get the driver's license from your school, that is the more introduction they do. But then when they go to the DVLA and they fail, and then you are not willing to compromise with the system and get more driver's license, then no one will come to your driving school. So this thing has been there for a long time. When I was operating a driving school, I took the DVLA to court. I established an NGO where we were able to secure a driver's license, a D-class driver's license, which mandates the driver to drive these buses, the VIP buses from Accra to Kumasi. That license mandates that driver to drive from those kind of buses with that volume of people in. But then the person didn't know which of the pedal is brake. If the person was issued with a D-class license, this was in 2008. We took the matter to court. There were a lot of frustrations which we ended up. So, Master, let me give you a typical example. When I was running a driving school, someone came to my driving school to learn basic driving, and he got a B-class driver's license. My brother, I came from Kumasi. That time I was based in Kumasi. I came from Kumasi to Accra, and I was going back. I went to Circle to pick a bus. And do you believe that after 6 months that this guy came to my driving school, he was driving a bus with occupants of over 50 people? I was in that bus. So when the bus was ready, he came to sit behind the wheel. So I went to him and called him. And my brother, how are you? And he said, oh, boss, I'm fine. Oh, Nana, how are you? And I also said, I'm fine. So I called him aside and asked him, are you the driver of this? Oh, Nana, I said, wow. What license are you using to drive this bus? And he showed me a genuine D-class driver's license. The D-class driver's license mandates him to drive buses, coaches.
Did you report him?
I'm coming. It was part of what we took to court. We reported to the DVL, and my brother, you see, this whole thing, I'm happy the media is getting involved. It shouldn't end now. If you really want results for this thing, it should be a daily program, and I can guide you, I can assist you with a lot of information, which will put fear in the people doing this. It's that, you see, the problem now is that, you see, these officers at DVLA think the Goro boys are taking more money. That is why now they want to take the money directly. I'm telling you the fact. Because for a DVLA officer, and you know, the road safety is definitely linked with DVLA, and it's about human lives. Pastor, it takes only 7 years of tertiary education, only university education to train one doctor. And after a thorough examination, he is entrusted with the life of one person at a time, with the assistance of a nurse, with the assistance of a pharmacist and other health professionals. But they are entrusted with the life of one person. Now, we corruptly give a driver's license to one person who is entrusted with the lives of a minimum of 5 people, including him or herself. And these people they lack basic knowledge about driving. It's only that they are able to move vehicles. Most of drivers in this country who drive these buses and heavy-duty vehicles, trucks and all, their only knowledge is changing first, second, third. They have no knowledge about road safety. And that's serious. That's how come people are dying on our roads. And the problem is, we are all at risk.
I want you to stay. I want you to stay with us, Mr. Boakye Adam. Stay with us because clearly there is a lot that we would have needed the DVLA to address. We invited them to this conversation. They have not shown up. But they did release a statement earlier, didn't they, Winston?
Yes, they did. And Kojo, in that statement dated 11th January, they talk about some of the challenges some of the measures they've taken. And so here, addressing challenges, immediate steps, management has taken the following immediate steps to address the challenges. 4 members of staff who were implicated in the publication have been interdicted pending the outcome of a full investigation. B, a meeting has been scheduled between DVLA and driving schools in Ghana to identify, discuss and streamline operations for efficiency. The STC driving school has been invited to a review meeting with the authority concerning their involvement in the alleged acts. If they are found to have breached any of our licensing conditions, the driving school will be sanctioned appropriately. And C, the process for printing driver's license is under review. Also talks about reforms to prevent future occurrence. A, DVLA's invoice system ensures transparency in our charges and also empowers the customer with information about our services. An update of our payment platform is currently ongoing and will be strategically hastened with a focus on accepting only digital forms of payment for nearly all our services. B, the authority will launch a mobile app by the end of the first quarter. This will give customers the opportunity to verify our products and services and also ensure they apply and pay for services and receive notifications. C, improving access control systems, including the installation of additional CCTV systems at all our CBT rooms. Webcams and facial recognition technologies will be introduced to ensure only the right candidates can undertake the test. And D, review of the operations of all driving schools in the country. Cameras will be fixed in the vehicles used for the in-traffic test. And F, continuous training and certification of driver examiners. And G, re-registration of all driving school and instructors. Talks about other ongoing system-wide reforms and says 1, implementation of uniform operational standards across the country pending our ISO 9001:2015 accreditation. 2, complete the implementation of the upgrade of the computer-based test system and its translation into 6 local languages: Ewe, Twi, Dagbani, Hausa and Zima and Ga. This will encourage competent clients who are unable to undertake the CBT in English to do so in any of the local languages stated. 3, digitizing the in-traffic test regime. The next after the theory test is the in-traffic test, and this stage is being digitized. The process will be strategically hastened to implementation, and this will prevent possible impersonation and ensure that only persons who pass the test are licensed. And finally, maximize public education on DVLA's operations to encourage prospective clients to access the formal laydown processes in their dealings with the authority.
Yeah, I think the more we hear from this statement, the clearer it becomes that DVLA really needs to be part of this conversation. There's so much that they need to explain to our understanding. Because these reforms that they have listed so extensively, well, they were all part of a process that they were supposed to have completed, for which reason this investigation was done, to test the effect of, the reforms that they had supposedly completed. Now we have them listing these same reforms again, that they are now going to do them. So it's important that we get them as part of the conversation. We are joined by Kwame Kodie-Tiahene, who is on the phone. He's the head of Regulation, Inspection and Compliance at the National Road Safety Authority, which plays that regulatory role in the center of all of this. Mr. Tiahene, it's a pleasure to speak to you as always. Good morning.
Pleasure to have me. Good morning, sir.
All right, this is really troubling, but this is your first time joining the conversation. I would love to know your take on everything you've heard from DVLA, from the driving schools, from the investigator.
Well, thank you. I think when I had the chance to speak with Francisca, and she sought to query on the necessity for having a qualified driver as far as the safety conversation is concerned. And that's a given. I mean, beyond the ability to move a vehicle forward and backwards, there's a lot that comes with the task of having to drive safely. And that responsibility is fairly within the purview of the licensing authority. I'm not too sure the span. I heard that the investigation must have taken some time. I mean, the point is that without holding brief for the DVLA, I should say, that it's almost very difficult trying to build a perfect system. But over the period working with them, we've seen that the last few years there's been some steady improvement in the way they apply their processes, but I'm unable to say that it is very perfect or close to 100%. And within that context, this investigative work and feedback, complaints from my friend Joe Rees feed into the conversation in ways that we could collectively build up the processes and try to make it perfect for our collective good. On our side with them, so the driving schools come directly under the DVLA. They issue the permit on license to them. They train the instructors. They develop the processes leading to application, expression of interest to the issuance of the license. So without a complaint or without feedback, as it is often very difficult to share whatever gaps that we may observe with them. But as and when we do so through our own research findings and observations in our quarterly, monthly meetings, we bring these matters up to the attention.
Is that your way of saying that there have been no complaints?
Yes, I should say that officially, as far as I'm concerned, there hasn't been a formal complaint. In fact, beyond the documentary, informally, sometimes you hear some comments. But that's why I said that in the past, I think we all concede to the fact that the last few years, I mean, the issue of Goro Boys, that tag, to be fair to the fact, was very pronouncedly used within the context of some state institutions, including the DVLA. But it is also a fact that within the last few years, we have seen some improvement. The way in which they used to engage members of the public, especially in the 37 area, their driving centers, you do not see them as you used to do in the past, and that's a mark of progress. But I hasten to add that it is very difficult to build a perfect system, especially when you have not gone beyond the veil to try to test the way these processes work. And I think it is within that context that this feedback coming from this documentary should be discussed.
Right.
And I'm happy that The DVLA has issued a statement, and for starters, the 4 or 5 officers that are complicit have had to suffer one reaction or the other, but it shouldn't end there.
Right.
Possibly get into the details to see whether these gaps could actually be resolved for the long term, and that is our own expectation.
Mr. Etiaine, help us understand the relationship between Road Safety Authority and the DVLA when it comes to regulation. You've explained that the driving schools come under the DVLA, but does the Road Safety Authority have the mandate to demand standards from the DVLA? Do you have the authority to inspect their processes to ensure that they are producing licensed, capable drivers who will not kill us all on the roads?
Yes, we do. We do. When you look at the due responsibility of the authority, ultimately our objective is to reduce crashes, injuries, and deaths.
Right.
And we essentially have an oversight over all institutions. But with our interplay with public sector institutions, when the DVLA plays a direct oversight over these institutions, our interest is that, one, there should be a standard model content that is made available for the driving schools. Two, the driving schools must be properly regulated in that they should meet some conditions to be able to apply for a license. Three, they are taking the trouble to apply for license in accordance with what the law says. So our law requires that you must be physically fit. You must sit in for in-person and in-traffic examinations and the likes. But where you haven't received, that's why I raised the issue of complaint. When you haven't received a complaint to doubt the credibility of what they do. For instance, if these matters had even come to our attention, the matters that are reported in the documentary related to the STC driving school or any other driving school, given that there's a regulator of these driving schools, would normally draw the attention of the DVLA and expect that a proper investigation be carried out and possibly feedback shared with us.
Well, Mr. Tiahine, you say that without a complaint, you can't take action. That surprises me because you are the National Road Safety Authority. Are you saying you're not aware that there are Guru boys operating at DVLA? Are you not aware that there are drivers who, by virtue of the fact that they can't even read or write English, could not possibly have completed the computerized theory test, but they are driving? Are you saying that the Road Safety Authority is not aware of these things and is waiting for a complaint before you seek to resolve them?
Yeah, because when you have a license, if you flash your license to be, and on the face of your license, it has a CLC number and it meets the form requirements, it will be very difficult for me to determine that a license is genuine.
Well, without investigating, it will be impossible.
My friend Nana Boate raised on the line that the issues he has personal knowledge of, if such issues were to come to the authorities' attention, I mean, it would be very irresponsible on our part not to act. But without that, you have a number of driving schools registered and licensed by another public institution. So without a complaint or, if you like, an investigative work or what do you call it, a mystery exercise, either by ourselves or jointly with them or other parties, it is very difficult to be able to determine that these are things that happen behind the scene. I was quick to admit that yes, the whole lexicon of Guru boys, I mean, to be fair to all of us, your listeners, I mean, it is not new. And we know how it gained currency within public service structure. I mean, it's public institutions that provide one service or the other. But I was quick to say that even though that fact is notorious to all of us, within the last 5 to 6 years, some progress have also been made. And even though it is not perfect, I mean, we look forward to these investigative works, complaints, feedback to be able to perfect the processes for our collective. Well, that's what I sought to communicate.
Okay. So let me simplify it. Mr. Tuahini, is the National Road Safety Authority aware that there are drivers who have not been properly trained and qualified to drive, and therefore, even though they have a driving license, are causing accidents on our roads? Is the authority aware of this?
Yes, there are times in the past where we've had to conduct audits.
Audits of what?
Yes, audit times where we've even worked with the authority before, the license authority in the past.
In the past?
Yes, especially with, at least there was a couple of years ago, especially with the transport operators.
Right.
I mean, and that's how come we found the necessity to introduce a refresher training, so that in order to deal with that problem somehow, those who have found a way to move a vehicle but without the requisite orientation would take opportunity to be refreshed.
So you are saying that you actually worked with DVLA and discovered that there were unqualified drivers with licenses, and to fix that problem, you arranged refresher courses for them.
I'm saying that.
Okay.
You asked a question as to whether we were aware.
Yes, and you are saying you were aware.
Yes, I'm saying that in the past.
In the past, you have been aware of this.
When you look at the workings and dealing with commercial transport operators,
right,
we found that there were deficits in the knowledge. So please try and understand me that within our operations, beyond the ability to move a vehicle, so you may be able to move a vehicle, but in the safety areas, we found a deficit in their orientation. That's why the law prescribes for a refresher training for such persons.
And these drivers all had driver's licenses issued by the DVLA?
These drivers were driving.
Yes, so they all had licenses issued by the DVLA?
Yes, they have licenses.
Okay, so my question is this: what did you do as the regulator to ensure that the DVLA cannot issue another license to another driver who doesn't have the right safety training to be on our roads?
Okay, so all of these happened before the fact, before we became a regulator. So at the time, that's what I'm trying to explain, at the time when those gaps were observed, the system that were put in place was to improve upon the quality or the knowledge base, and that's how come we started introducing the refresher training program.
Right.
After the fact, the processes are different.
Okay. You have been a regulator now for some years. What have you done about the problem?
Years, yeah.
How many years?
Since 2019.
So a good.
We've had since 2019, and now beyond the law, you need a full complement of your regulations, which went to Parliament in December 2022. It's yet to come out.
Okay.
As yet.
So, as a regulator, what have you done about what you already know, that there are drivers who are getting licenses without being properly trained to drive?
As a regulator, the DVLA has a primary responsibility. And so, one, we need to be sure that they have standards in terms of how institutions get to be licensed to be issued with driving schools. I think they do have that. They have processes leading to who gets trained these new drivers. I think they do have that. In recent times, they have advertised for a series of training for these instructors. The gaps, as we have observed from the documentary, are internal processes. as far as the relationship between the regulator and their licensees are concerned. I'm saying that these are positive feedback, and the authority itself have taken steps to act. We intend to follow up on the commitments they have made in their press statements in order to show that the gaps that they themselves have identified will be followed through till the end.
Okay, you've described your responsibilities and admitted there are gaps. I'm not sure that I've got the answer to my question, which is, what have you done?
What I have done, what we have done.
Yes.
Yeah, so what we have done, I mean, the person to this investigative work.
Since you became an authority, aware of the fact that there are drivers who have licenses but are not trained to drive.
Well, that's the point I'm making. So let's try to understand that. But before then, the system. Okay, let me deal with it this way. Since we became an authority, in fact, towards the end of last year, we have worked closely with the DVLA to try to put in place the structure to intensify the continuous training of commercial drivers. We call it the commercial drivers model, where they're going to have some consistent training as a basis. So what is being done at present is that we are putting in place a system which ensure that even though you have a license and you have been driving for a certain number of years, without going through this mandatory or compulsory refresher training, you cannot continue to drive as a commercial vehicle.
Okay.
The system is in place, and we are working closely with them to initiate the implementation. That is what has been done the last year or two.
Okay. Is there anything that you can do to ensure that people are not given licenses until they are qualified?
Say that again.
Is there anything the authority can do to ensure that people are not given licenses unless they are qualified to drive?
Yes. I think on the basis of this feedback, it strengthens the basis for us to pay closer attention to the commitment made by the authority. When I say the authority, the licensing authority, in that only institutions that meet the test, integrity and related tests are achieved with the license to train drivers, that they improve upon their internal controls to be sure that once you apply, you go through the requisite processes before you are issued with a final license. It's a commitment that we are not shy to carry out, and in our regular interface with the licensing authority, our quarterly meetings, these are issues that we continue to demand improvement on.
Right. Okay. I'm aware of how fast our time is going, so I'm going to very quickly come round for a quick final words from everyone, starting in the studio with Reverend Boakye Adom, and then I'll give the final word to Francisca Encho, who did the investigation. So, Reverend Boakye Adom, I keep asking everybody what is going to change, what's going to be different, what you are going to do to ensure that what has happened before cannot happen again. From what you explained to us, you are still depending on the integrity of your employees to prevent this from happening again, to avoid putting more unqualified drivers on our roads. You are relying on the integrity of your staff. So if you have one member of staff who doesn't have integrity, we will still keep seeing this problem.
Yeah, thank you. Not only the integrity, but I said that we'll continue to put in place the needed controls and the systems. And one of them is this time around, we'll try and separate the contact of paying money to DVLA by the instructors. This time around, an appointed official will be doing that, and we'll make sure that we get receipt for all the payment that will be done by us. Once we get the receipt, we also verify to be sure that the receipt has been paid, or the amount or the receipt agrees with the list that we generated for those students that will have to be paid. We have also going to make sure that the attendance sheet that was also controlled by the instructors this time will not be controlled by the instructor. An independent person will be doing it. And we'll also be enforcing that the secretary who also interviews the students when they come also will check the receipt, check the call list, and make sure that all those people that we have booked, we have actually receipted their monies. Their monies received are being receipted, and the proper books and records are properly maintained.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming to Joseph now, and I'm afraid we have just about 30 seconds for each of you. So you identify DVLA as the biggest weakness in the whole process. What is your recommendation to fix that?
Yeah, good morning and good morning again. And you see, it's funny how Kwame is fumbling with the National Road Safety Authority's mandate. I would have loved for you to ask him to read the mandate of the National Road Safety Commission. And it will state that they are to ensure road safety by whatever means they must ensure road safety. And with this documentary, the head of the National Road Safety should be even be fired. But then the first thing that I will recommend is for the fact that the theory driving test must be taken away from the DVLA. They are not right. They don't have the knowledge, the competence to conduct that theory driving test. It should be taken away from them and given to an examination body whereby someone will go there, take the test. If you pass, you bring your past test to DVLA to do the in-traffic test. I think they have more competence doing the in-traffic test than the theory test. If it's not taken away from them, then the driving school will be purpose of DVLA, and they will be the driving schools. If you don't fall for this DVLA thing, your school will not prosper. So most of these driving schools will have to do what they are doing now to be able to survive, because people go to the driving school not to learn how to drive, but then to get driver's license. So if you are unable to get driver's license for them, by all means, no one will come to your driving school. So the whole system needs a restructuring, and the National Road Safety Commission Authority has a key role to supervise the DVLA and all the road safety institutions to ensure that our roads are safe, because every life is at risk. My life is at risk, yours is at risk, and you see the DVLA officers, I don't know why you give license to an unqualified person, you close from work, and you share the road with the same person. Your family shares the road with the same person. What's wrong with them?
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to bring in Francisca now to wrap this up for us. You've heard from everyone. We've lost Francisca Angel. Oh, that's a pity. I had wanted to find out what she thinks about everyone's proposed reforms. But of course, this conversation cannot end here. I think we still have Kwame Kodu-Etuahine on the line. So I'll give you 30 seconds, Mr. Etuahine, to tell us the way forward. What can Ghana depend on the National Road Safety Authority to do to help fix this problem?
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's work in progress, and the responsibility is set. Commendations to your team. I mean, the media can always support accountability efforts, and that's exactly what you are doing and trying to push our collective efforts. Our commitment is to work within the parameters of our law to continue to demand accountability from stakeholder institutions. My point must be made that we have just become an authority, and even though you have a law, there are a number of systemic things that must be in place before the public will begin to have a full feel of the true intent of our mandate. We like to take one step at a time, and in the fullness of time, I think the true intent will play out in the way that we all expect. And I like the point Joseph made. From our responsibility to the public, we equally use the road. And that is our mindset, I believe, for all of us who work in the public environment. I cannot, for any reason, go to sleep on my job when I'm as exposed to the dangers of my responsibility as any other person. And that's what drives us. So we commit that on the basis of this documentary, if there's any assurances that the public may have, we have read the statement from the DVLA. We are happy the initial steps they have taken.
Okay, well, we certainly hope that this commitment you make will be fulfilled quickly, because people are dying. Thanks to all of you for joining us. You've heard from Francisca Enchil, the investigator behind the Corruption Watch documentary. Reverend Paul Boakye Yadom is the director of Bethel Training and Consultancy Services. They work with STC Driver Training and Services. Joseph Boakye Yadom joined us via Zoom. He's the owner of Joe Rees Drive Tech, which he says he's had to shut down because of the corruption that they were facing, allegedly from the DVLA. Kwame Kodue-Tuahene joined us over the phone. He's the head of regulation, inspection, and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority.